We have tons of news and rumors to take a look at here this evening. The latest trade rumors we're focusing on today include the latest on teams like the Edmonton Oilers, Ottawa Senators, Toronto Maple Leafs, and Winnipeg Jets, as well as the New York Islanders, Nashville Predators, and a few others. Plus, we have some big signings to take a look at here today. Some more big deals, including Anton Lundell and Vladimir Tarasenko. William Carrier signs long-term in Carolina. We have history made in Seattle with the first woman coach ever hired for a full-time spot in the NHL bench. Plus, big news out of Utah and in San Jose as well. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a ton of news, signings, rumors, everything to take a look at here tonight. So let's recap all of what we've learned here today and all the rumblings around the NHL. First up, let's start with the signings. We got a bunch more. Free agent frenzy, day 3 continues. We got some RFA, some entry-level deals, and some more UFA contracts, including a big one in Detroit, where they signed veteran Vladimir Tarasenko. Tarasenko is the latest to vacate the Florida Panthers Stanley Cup championship team. Signs a 2-year deal with the Red Wings at $4.75 million per season. That's a lot of money for Tarasenko, but I mean, he has produced and he continues to be consistent. The last couple of years, his numbers aren't quite what they used to be. He's not the 30 to 40 goal scorer, but he has been pretty consistent, around that 20 or so mark, 40, 50 points. Split last year between Ottawa and Florida, finished strong with the Panthers and helped them win the Stanley Cup. So certainly I think the Stanley Cup championship probably played a role in the contract for sure. We saw the Red Wings earlier, not long before the signing, trade Robbie Fabry to the Anaheim Ducks, who was making just a little bit less than Tarasenko here, so that frees up the money. I mean, they don't really have a cap issue right now. They have around $20 million in cap space, but they also have 3 restricted free agents on their teams. They're going to be looking for 2 of the 3, especially going to be big money deals, including Lucas Raymond, Mo Seider, and Joe Veleno. So as much as those contracts are going to eat up a lot of that money. So to take in money, Yzerman's still looking to offload money. We've seen him do the same thing with Jake Wallman earlier. The Wallman and Fabry trades are both a little puzzling, where they both had to be given conditional picks in there to kind of as incentive. Whereas I'm like, okay, you saw Radek Faksa get traded. There was no conditions, no sweeteners there. Matthew Joseph was traded with a sweetener, but he had 2 years in his contract, whereas these guys didn't. So especially like the contract for Fabry only had 1 year. And it's not like he's been a scrub. Like he put up 18 goals last year. Like it's just kind of a couple of confusing trades by Yzerman. There's got to be more to the plan, if you will, that we don't know yet, so we'll see how things work out, but as of right now, kind of weird. The Panthers came to terms with their main RFA today, Anton Lundell, who they call Barkov 2.0 or Mini Barkov or Baby Barkov or whatever. There's lots of different Barkov nicknames for Lundell. He gets a long-term deal, 6 years, $5 million a season. That is, I think, a good contract for him. I would suspect with all of the people that have vacated the team that were unrestricted and have left. I mean, they kept their most coveted UFA, Sam Reinhart, and it sounds like they're working on extensions for Carter Verhaeghe and Sam Bennett. They're expected to stay. Then, of course, you got Barkov, Kachuk. I would think Lundell will probably be able to get more of a solid top 6 role. If you're going to pay him this kind of money, that's not usually third-line money. So I think this opportunity here with the Cup Championship and, of course, the cap strap team, they lose a lot of players, allows guys like him to elevate as well, and he's earned the opportunity. So good contract there for Lundell. We get the Carolina Panthers signing Will Carrier, formerly the Vegas Golden Knights, one of the original Misfits there. He gets a 6-year contract with the Hurricanes at $2 million a year. That is crazy. You don't really see bottom 6 players, especially fourth liners, getting term, especially 6-year term. Even 3 and 4 years is rare, and a lot of times they don't work out. And considering how analytical the Hurricanes are with the new GM there, Eric Tulsky, being an analytics guru, that surprises me. Really surprises me. Now, thankfully, it's a low AAV, so it's not the biggest issue, but it just, you don't usually see term like that. But I hope it works out. I mean, he's a good player. He'll definitely be good for their bottom six. He comes with a good amount of experience, a Stanley Cup championship on his resume. Good player. I think he'd be good for them in the bottom six role. But it's really unusual to see that kind of term. St. Louis today officially announced they've signed Pierre-Olivier Joseph to a one-year contract as well. So, of course, they traded for his brother Matthew from Ottawa just in the last day or so here. So the Joseph brothers will reunite and get to play together for the first time at the NHL level in St. Louis. So that's kind of cool for them. Like I said, for Matthew leaving Ottawa, and it's fairly close because they're born and brought up in Quebec, so it's not far from home. I know Joseph in Ottawa had some teammates that he played junior with as well that he knew for long stretches, really good buddies with Thomas Chabot. So I'm sure it was kind of sad for him to leave, but for a chance to play with his brother, that's got to be something that's pretty cool, especially for the parents too. So really glad and happy to see that happening there. Carolina also signed defenseman Riley Stillman, gets a one-year, 2-way contract. The LA Kings have brought in Jack Stagnica, who was not qualified as a RFA. He gets a one-year, 2-way contract, but it's a pretty lucrative AHL deal where he's got $475,000 guaranteed. So I would think with the LA roster, especially with Blake Lizotte gone, I wonder if he'll have a shot there at the fourth line center role, and if he doesn't, or if he's not consistently playing in the NHL, at least he'll get a good payday. Detroit also, besides Tarasenko, signed Tyler Mott today. He gets a one-year deal at $800,000. Another Michigan native going to play in Michigan. They've also got quite a few combination of former Rangers and former Senators. They're starting to really pile up there in Detroit. But Mott's a good player, good bottom six guy. One-year deal at $800,000 should have pretty good value. The Nashville Predators today signed Kiefer Bellows to a one-year, 2-way deal as well. So, of course, Nashville GM Barry Trotz would be quite familiar with Kiefer Bellows, longtime Islander, former Islanders first-round prospect who didn't pan out there, but Trotz would have been spent enough time with him that he's familiar with him. So I'm sure that connection paid off to get that contract. The Senators signed one of their newer prospects today, Matthew Ondonovsky. He gets his 3-year entry-level contract. He was drafted last year in 2023. Plays for the OHL's Kitchener Rangers, 19 years old. He's a big, strong defensive-style defenseman who plays with some bite and edge to his game. So the 5th-round pick from last year has made great progress. The reviews on him have been really solid for his draft plus one season. So he's at development camp right now with the Senators and gets his ELC signed. So that's good for him. He's made some good progress and earned that. The Flyers are bringing back Bobby Brink on a 2-year contract. It's $1.5 million AAV for him. Former Columbus Blue Jacket Carson Myers, now an Anaheim Duck. He gets a 1-year, 2-way deal in Vegas. Even though they didn't qualify him, they have signed goalie Akira Schmid, who they picked up from New Jersey in that trade a few days ago. Gets a 2-year contract, $875,000 is his AAV. So overall, pretty good contracts there. Now, some other news around the NHL today. The Seattle Kraken have made history. And I'm happy to see this, but at the same time, they're bringing in the very first full-time female coach to join the bench. So Dan Bylsma is the new head coach of the Seattle Kraken. Of course, he had just finished coaching their AHL affiliate in Coachella Valley, who went to the American Hockey League championship final. The last 2 seasons, unfortunately, they didn't win either of them. They were the runner-up each time to the Hershey Bears. But with him down there was Jessica Campbell, who was a full-time assistant coach with him. After he got the job in Seattle, there was a lot of speculation that Jessica would either have an opportunity to maybe be the head coach with the AHL club in Coachella Valley, or maybe follow Bylsma and join him as an assistant on his NHL bench. And that's what's happened here. So Jessica Campbell, to me, and it's not just because she's a woman. I mean, it's happy to see a female get a more prominent role within an NHL bench, and certainly, this will help, kind of inspire future female coaches as well. But she's earned it. She's a good coach. She's got a lot of experience. She's played at a high level herself. Former player who's played in the previous renditions of the female professional leagues that we've seen. I think it was the CWHL she played in. She's played for Team Canada at the international level as well. And she's been in coaching for some time. She's worked, obviously, at the pro level now for a few years with Dan Bylsma. So he obviously a lot of familiarity there. Before that, I believe she was doing some one-on-one coaching with NHL players as like a skating skills coach. So, she's a well-respected, very well-experienced coach. And it's just nice to see that the opportunity is there. Like I said, not just because she's a woman, that's a great thing, but the fact that she's a high-qualified woman who's earned this opportunity is just great to see. So congratulations to Jessica Campbell for earning that chance. The Seattle Kraken remainder of their bench, besides Jessica Campbell and Bilesma, will be Bob Woods, who was previously spent with the Minnesota Wild. I think he's been there he was assistant coach for 6-7 years. And then Dave Lowry, who has also been with the Kraken for the past couple of seasons. Before that, he spent a good stretch with the Winnipeg Jets. Of course, his son, Adam Lowry, is now the captain of the Winnipeg Jets. Big news out of Utah, which will help keep that franchise on steady ground and in the state of Utah and Salt Lake City for a really long period of time. But the Ryan Smith Group is set to finalize a deal which would keep the Utah Hockey Club, as we know them today. They'll have their nickname soon enough, as well as the NBA team, the Utah Jazz, in the state of Utah and the city of Salt Lake City for at least another 30 years. There's a $900 million deal with the state for public funding to renovate the Delta Center to make it their home for both franchises for the next 30 years. So obviously we know that they were already set to start undergoing some renovations to increase the number of seats with a good view for hockey, since it was built primarily as a basketball arena. So that's not only going to go through those renovations to make that better for hockey and increase the capacity upwards of 16,000 good viewing seats there, but it's also going to be developing around the arena a 3-block sports and entertainment district. So obviously Ryan Smith's getting a big incentive here from the local community in the state to obviously really develop this. So like I said, the conditions is that the team has to give a commitment to playing their home games at the Delta Center for 30 years. So obviously there's no intention, and it's like I said, he's very well funded, obviously a good owner who's on very stable ground. Certainly we know that he's aggressive. I mean, look how long they've been owning the team, and look how many moves they've already made. They've made more big moves to bring in more big name players than we ever seen the different owners of the Coyotes do. And that's not a kick at any Coyote fans. That's just fact. I feel bad for the Coyotes fans watching this Utah franchise show up at the draft and be aggressive. They never get a chance to really see and witness and feel that. The owners there that they've had over the years in different capacities have just never been really the greatest. I'm not sure how they managed to not have good ownership there. It just never was. San Jose Sharks news today. They've hired Ryan Clowe, of course, the Newfoundland native. Had a good chunk of time as a player with the Sharks organization. Unfortunately, Ryan Clowe was a big boy, good player. Had to retire way too early due to concussion issues and health complications from it. But he has recently been working with the New York Rangers, and now he returns to the Sharks as an assistant general manager. So that's a nice role for Clowe. Well regarded as a very smart hockey mind, very intelligent guy that way, understands the ins and outs of it. I'm not surprised to see him in management whatsoever. So Ryan Clowe, like I said, has a long history with that franchise, and obviously a long history and just in the state of the game. There was a brief period of time too when he was actually the head coach of the Newfoundland Growlers when they were in the East Coast League. Unfortunately, that team doesn't exist anymore, and also unfortunately Clowe didn't get to stick with that job too long because he ran into some health issues and had to leave the team, and it just didn't work out for him. But it's nice to see him doing better and back in the NHL. Some trade talk around the NHL, a couple of things to take a look at. We saw the Edmonton Oilers in free agency bring back a lot of the band that got them all the way to the Stanley Cup final. They were able to keep a lot of people, which is great to see. They're going to be as good or better next year. I really believe that. They kept Brown, they kept Janmark, they kept Henrique, they brought in Arvidsson, they brought in Jeff Skinner. This team looks even more strong than before, to be honest. So I really think they're going to be a team that's going to be tough to play against, and I think they'll have a much better start to their season next year and have a much more legit shot at being a cup contender. If I'm not mistaken, a lot of the betting sites have them as already, even though Florida won this past year, I think Edmonton's already the favorite on most places as the team to win next year. But they do likely need to cut some salary. The main names that we're hearing out there that the Oilers could consider a move with is Cody Ceci and or Ryan McLeod. Ceci obviously got 1 year left at $3.25 million. I think they could, with the names they brought in through free agency and what they have in their system there, especially with the emergence of Broberg. They did lose Desharnais, unfortunately, as well, but Ceci is a name to watch that could move. So we'll see there. Ryan McLeod, they like McLeod. I just think for where he plays in the lineup, they'd like to see a more physical player. He can skate like the wind, but he doesn't really play a very physical game. He's, like I said, he's quick, he's lean, he's not overly, like he's tall, but he's not like big and strong. He's just not a physical player. And where he plays in their lineup, that's what they would like somebody to be more physical. So it doesn't mean for sure he's going to go, but if they have an opportunity to move him for the right price, and they can bring in another player who can play for a lesser salary and give you a different style, a more physical style, they might do that. So obviously he's a player that was drafted there and developed there. And like I said, it's not that they don't like him. It's just, I think they'd like to get a different style of player if they do make that move, but it's not something they absolutely need to do. Cody Ceci might end up being the one to go, and we'll see what happens. But the Oilers do need to find a way to cut down on some salary in that sense. Same thing goes for Nashville. Nashville definitely came out aggressive as in free agency and definitely won the day July 1st, walking away with Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, Brady Shea, and Scott Wedgwood. Like, that was crazy and insane. But now they're at a spot where they could probably use a little bit more flexibility just to kind of tinker and kind of round things out. And it's believed Cody Glass is a name that they'd probably like to find a new home for if they can. Yeah, he's not signed for too long, but he's only making $2.5 million. Still fairly young. Another first-round pick from that original Golden Knights draft. Of course, they had 3 first-rounders that year. They drafted Cody Glass, Nick Suzuki, and Eric Brandstrom, and they traded all of them. Glass was the last to go. And had a lot of potential. Played in the Western Hockey League. Was a pretty good scorer and point producer in junior. Had a chance to go to the World Juniors for Team Canada as well. But at the NHL level, he's had his ups and downs. There's no doubt. But with that $2.5 million salary, he was already a player that was not getting in the lineup regularly, especially came playoff time this past spring. And then you add the names that they added here in free agency, that's just going to really push his spot. So to me, it makes sense to find a new home for him. So don't be surprised if we see Cody Glass get moved. I think that's a real possibility. The top prospect in Winnipeg that we keep hearing doesn't want to be there, Rutger McGroarty. There's a new team linked to him, and it's the Ottawa Senators. I've seen a bunch of reports and different talk online today that the Sens do have interest in this player. We do know that with the moves they've made, they're in a spot with their roster because he wants some kind of assurance that he's going to get NHL playing time. And right now, with where they're at, it's not an absolute given. Depends on what they trade for him, I guess. But they still have room in their bottom 6, and I think he's a player that could start in the bottom 6 and work his way up. I think long term he'll be a top 6, probably a second line player, somebody with good offensive instincts that can play, a strong physical, smart style of game. To me, he kind of reminds me a little bit of Ridley Gregg in some senses. I think that especially those two guys could be line mates down the road if they both remain in Ottawa. Their belief was that, at least amongst the fan base, that to get a guy like McGroarty, that the offer for Winnipeg to entice them should be maybe next year's first-round pick. Maybe put a protection on it, top 5 or top 10 protected. The problem is Ottawa does have to surrender one of their next 2 first-round picks because of the NHL stripping them of one of them because of Pierre Dorian's mess up with that Evgeny Dadonov trade a few years ago that he got nailed for right before he gets fired and get out the door after ownership change. So it's expected they're going to push that all the way to 2026, which is the latest they could do it. The other thing is that I think there's some... I'm not sure how much hope there is, but I think that the thought amongst the organization was the longer they wait, maybe they can convince the NHL to lower the penalty, maybe lose a second-round pick, or I don't know if there's any hope of that, but I think internally there is some, at least a little bit. And if they absolutely have to do it, they're going to push it as long as possible, with the anticipation being that they're going to continuously get better and that pick will become lower. So they can, if they trade 25 and they have to give up 26, that means they're not picking in the first round of the draft until 27, unless they make a trade of some kind and pick up another first rounder. And where the team is at, I don't know. That seems risky. I mean, I like McGroarty. He's a good player. I don't know. I don't know that that's the right move. I mean, unless they have a prospect that the Jets like, that they'd be willing to move, and they probably do have a prospect or a young player that the Jets would like. I just don't know that they're going to want to move him, is the thing. They're going to want to add without subtracting. And, obviously next year's first is interesting. We'll see. I don't know, but they definitely, I can confirm with the reports I've seen that there's interest. Whether or not a deal gets done, it's hard to say. The Jets also have Nikolai Ehlers. There's no real update there, but there's still another player that's expected to go that wanted to get moved. But I guess the caution here is that this time last year, we thought Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuck were going to end up getting traded. And then we got a surprise announcement one day in the summer that they signed 7-year extensions. So we'll see. Not a given that Ehlers gets moved. Of course, the last most recent rumor around Ehlers was the Islanders were interested, which makes sense too. But we'll see. I don't know where things stand with what they want, or if they're even committed to moving, or they're still kind of trying to smooth things over and convince them to stay. We'll have to see where that goes, but another name to watch. And of course, we know that Nick Robertson with the Maple Leafs is out there, given that he didn't want to sign and he wants to get moved, wants a fresh start, citing some frustrations over the past few years. I saw an article today in the Hockey News from Stefan Rosner, who mainly writes from a New York Islanders perspective, and he had an interesting take in an article suggesting maybe the Islanders and the Leafs should talk about a swap that would involve Nick Robertson and Oliver Wahlstrom. Robertson's a player that obviously Lou Lamoriello would have some knowledge of, being that he used to work with the Leafs organization. It's been a while since he's been gone, so not like he would know a lot firsthand for the more recent stuff. But obviously the connection there. Wahlstrom's another former high pick that has struggled, and we kind of suspect that he will most likely get traded this summer for a fresh start to go to another organization. And why not trade him for another player who's in a similar boat, who could use a change of scenery too? I mean, they're both guys that are supposed to be pretty good goal scorers and have not found their full-time NHL stride and really get that full-time opportunity yet. Wahlstrom's had more opportunity than Robertson has, for sure, and has struggled with consistency. But maybe you throw Oliver Wahlstrom in those top couple lines with the Leafs, maybe things are different. Robertson had his moments when he was pretty good too as well. I have to kind of think about the idea that might be an interesting trade, to be completely honest. They're both, I would think, on the open market would have similar value, and they're both players that had good past, like they were drafted with good expectations and just haven't quite been lived up to and haven't been met yet. And it might be a good swap. So let me know your thoughts. If those two teams, if that makes sense to you, is that a trade that you would do if you're on either side? Is it a fair deal? Let me know your thoughts. We'll discuss further in the comment section. That is all your news and rumors for today. So certainly thanks for watching. Stay tuned. We'll be back more with all the news, signings, trade rumors, etc. around the entire league here in the coming days. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.